So we're going to do a quick garden tour, and then I will talk to you guys about what's planted here and what we're planning on growing here in the upcoming season. So, and one of the things that you can notice is that James is doing the watering, but the thing about the watering is you don't necessarily have to stand in that one place and just hold the hose. So it's there, it's saturating the bed, but another thing that we encourage our volunteers to do is if you're here and you see trash or weeds or anything like that, we would love the help as far as like picking up trash or pulling weeds. And so I'll actually point out to you today what is a weed in this garden, because I think sometimes people are a little apprehensive of like, I don't know if they planted that on purpose or what. So we'll point that out today. First of all, this is not growing. You can tell that this is a dead plant. It's nice and brown and crispy. What this is producing actually is coriander, which is a spice that a lot of people use in cooking. It's the seed pod of cilantro. So if you didn't know that cilantro and coriander come from the same plant, there's a little tidbit for you. I'll try to see if you could tell it's scent, but you can't really. So this is one of the things that needs to be pulled out soon. And one of the techniques that we like to use as far as taking care of garden debris is called chop and drop. You don't ever have to throw plant debris in the trash. It's actually really not good for our landfills, and it just sits there going to waste when it could go back towards nourishing the soil. So if you see dry, dead plants like this, and if you're not sure, you're always welcome to message us on the Facebook page or message myself or James or Desiree. Well, I just put your name out there. Message Desiree. Thanks, Desiree. And you can also ask in the Facebook group. Yes, so we love that. Yes, we love that because then if you're not sure, you can get a definite answer. So stuff like this would get pulled out. You can use garden snips to chop it into small pieces, and then you can just toss it on the ground because it'll break down in these wood chips, and over time it will decompose into soil. So this bed eventually is going to get fully cleaned out, topped up with extra soil, and then we'll replant it. We were hoping to do it tonight, but we probably won't get a chance. So we can keep walking. We want to beat the weather in case it starts raining. Yes, we've had a garden visitor, so there is quite a bit of, yes. So watch your feet. And the other thing too is sometimes we get ants, so be cognizant of that as well. So this bed, we actually ended up scooping a lot of the soil out of this one to top up another bed. So we brought some soil today so we could refill this. This is a Pattypan, or also known as a white scallop squash plant. So you guys can come closer and see indicators of a healthy plant are that it's nice and green. It's photosynthesizing. Boys, do y'all know what photosynthesizing means? Photosynthesis. Have you heard of photosynthesis before? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to tell me about what photosynthesis is? Okay. Well, it has to do with light. So light, you can think photo, light, like when you take a picture and there's a flash of light. So when a plant is photosynthesizing, it's using light from the sun to make nutrients. So the same way that we need vitamins and minerals, plants also need vitamins and minerals. And it's using the sunlight to help make some of those vitamins and minerals for itself. So if you want to come closer, you can actually see some of the fruit that it's starting to produce. These are Pattypan squash. They're really, really good. We usually like to harvest them when they're like this big. So this one will probably be big enough to harvest in like 2 to 3 days, maybe. And anybody can harvest from this garden at any point in time. This plant is actually really, really full and has a lot of leaves, which is great. But at times, if a plant has too many leaves, you want to prune them back a little bit because some of the nutrients that it's creating will go towards growing more luscious leaves as opposed to giving you bigger, hardier fruits. And typically when we're growing a fruiting plant, we're growing it for the fruit and not the leaves. You can eat squash leaves, but most people don't. Yeah. So yeah, this is our Pattypan squash in this planter. Some of the things that we may plant for the remainder of the summer. We may do some turnips. We may do more green beans. It's a little bit too late to start any new tomatoes, so we won't do that. And then as it gets cooler, we'll do things like lettuce. We might do some celery and maybe even broccoli and cabbage. Yes. I'll show you that right now, actually. Okay. So this is another squash plant. This one is a zucchini. So zucchini and pattypan are in the same plant family, although they're a little different. And you can look closely here. One of the things about squash plants is you have male flowers. This is a male flower. And then you have female flowers. The female flowers are the ones that have the tiny little fruit on the back end. So you can tell that this one is going to become a zucchini squash. It's a female. This one doesn't have a fruit there. It's a male. When a plant has leaves like this, nice and full, and you want to prune some of them out so that it can have good airflow and so that the pollinators can actually see the flowers so that they can pollinate them for you, you want to prune out leaves that look damaged. So maybe have some brown spots, yellowing, torn leaves. And all you're going to do, I'm going to put on a little sleeve because zucchini plants can be a little bit itchy. They have spikes on them to protect themselves. The purpose of a fruiting plant or any plant is for it to reproduce. And so they do whatever they can to make sure that they don't get damaged and to make sure that their seeds make it to fruition. So inside of a fruit like a zucchini or a pattypan squash, that's where the seeds are. And I think I can feel some raindrops. So what I'm going to do to prune this leaf out is come all the way as low as I can to the base of the plant and just give it a snip. Super easy. And then I'll just cut it into pieces and I just throw it on the ground. You can also throw it in the bed too, but these beds are real full, so I'm just going to throw it on the ground. So here's another one that has some browning. So I'm going to prune this one out. And the other thing you can see, here's a female fruit right here. Well, if there's tons of leaves right here, the bees aren't going to see that flower when it opens up. So the other thing that you want to do is if your leaves all look good and you're like, I don't want to cut any of them, but if they're blocking your fruit, then those are the ones that you can prune out so that your pollinators can actually see the fruit. So I'm going to prune out these leaves right here so that when the flower opens up. So what has to happen is a bee has to go into the male flower, do a little dance, collect the pollen, and then it'll visit the female flower. And some of the pollen that's on it will go into the female flower and that'll help that zucchini fruit grow. So yeah, so you know when they say the birds and the bees, yeah. Your bees are your pollinators, yeah.
Like advise against planting them close together? Like, is that why they're separate?
You can plant multiple kinds of squash together if you want to, as long as you're okay with your next year's fruit. If you're deciding to save the seeds, being a hybrid, it could potentially cross-pollinate, where pollen from that plant could mix with pollen from this plant, and then you get a new fruit that's a mixture between the two. That doesn't always happen, but it's likely to happen if your plants are really close together. So, and your bees are going from one to another. Now, if you don't have any plans on saving seeds, then it's not going to matter. Like, even if it cross-pollinates, it's not going to affect that current generation. It's going to affect the next. So, you know, it's totally fine to have these two next to each other and cross-pollinate because we don't have any plans on saving these seeds. I mean, I say that, but the pattypan seeds have been kind of hard to find. So, but we're growing some in our yard. So here's weed identification for you. This is called lamb's quarters. It is edible, but nobody eats it. The thing about living in the United States is we have a very non-varied diet. And so in other countries, like in Africa, they would probably eat the lamb's quarters. They definitely eat the squash leaves. They make it into a stew. But here, you know, people have just developed a specific taste, especially when it comes to greens. So I'm actually going to pull this one out. You can see this root matter, guys. Look how intense that looks. So this is another way that a plant uptakes nutrients from the soil. So not only does it photosynthesize and get some nutrients from the sun, but it also sends these roots down into the soil And there's these little creatures that live in the soil called soil microbes. You cannot see them with your eyes. You have to use a microscope. Anyways, they give off nutrients that the plants can uptake into their bodies to become nice and healthy and strong. And this weed got nice and healthy and strong. So I'm going to pull that out. And then do you want to chop this? Does anybody want to chop that up for me and drop it? And then maybe we just look at this row before we call it. Yeah, so we'll just look at that. But yeah. But also, so James has continued to move the hose from bed to bed, which is what can be done. And when he and I are here watering, that's what we do. We just put the hose in the bed, let it saturate. We might move it from one corner to the next. But while it's in one corner, we'll go and pull weeds. And then when we notice the water start to drip out the bottom, we'll move it to the other corner. And then when we see that water start to drip out of the bottom, we'll move it to a different bed. That's how long it takes to get every bed to be able to see the water dripping out of the bottom. Now, if it's rained like this and the soil is pretty damp, it may not take that long. And we're hoping to get some more mulch and mulch really heavily so that it can maintain moisture. And then hopefully in the future, it'll take an hour maybe. But we do have quite a few beds here. So yeah, we'll look at this row and then we can call it. This is a volunteer tomato plant. We had Roma tomato plants here last year. And then I guess, I think I buried some of the tomatoes that were smushed. Yeah, and then that one came up on its own. These are green beans. Have you ever seen how green beans grow? So this is what they look like. These are speckled. Yeah, these are like, some of these are kind of speckled. It's like a mix. But yeah, this is how beans grow. This is a butternut squash. I think there was one on the plant and then somebody harvested it and it wasn't ripe. But if you have any questions about whether or not something's ripe, you're welcome to send us a picture through Facebook and we can let you know. So butternut squash, we'll just keep moving right along. This is a cherry tomato. This is basil. So feel free to get any of that if you like making pesto. One of the things about basil is you want to try to harvest it before it makes those flowers. There's peppermint. Here's the cherry tomatoes producing. So yeah, this plant desperately needs to be pruned, but I'll probably have to come out and make a video another day. But this should grow over that. Okay, so yes. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, we won't task the volunteers with picking up dog food. Yeah. Yes, we're trying to get a fence here soon to go like right there. So no, yeah, I'm okay. So these huge plants are sunflowers. These all got planted themselves, like by the wind. So we didn't plant any of these. Yeah, we planted sunflowers last year. The seeds fell, and then this is where they ended up. So we just left them because we thought it looked pretty. This is more basil. This is a butternut squash. More cherry tomatoes. This is a watermelon plant. There are some labels in some of the beds, so you can look for those if you're not sure. And yellow squash, yeah. And then so over there is just more cherry tomatoes, sunflowers. So yeah, and so yeah. Sorry, guys. But yes, totally. So the water's locked. Yes, so when you're finished watering, you'll reel the hose back into the hose wand and then put the lock back on and make sure the coat is shuffled. Yes. Oh, okay. How do we volunteer again? So on the Facebook page, which I'll be posting it by the end of this week, I'll have the sign up list for July. Okay. So if you'd like to sign up for July, the dates will be on there and you just pick whatever date you like. Okay. And then James will follow up with you if you have any questions. Okay. Your umbrella's so cute. Oh, okay. Okay, thank y'all so much. Thank you.